Staying with the situation in New Caledonia, a political blame game has now begun over who's behind the surge in violence. And Solange Mougin is with me on set to discuss this with us. Now, Solange, the French Interior Minister, Gerald, Darmanin, has placed much of the blame on one specific group that's called the CCAT. First of all, just tell us who they are.
Well, the CCAT is the Cellule de Coordination des Actions sur le Terrain, or the Field Action Coordination Cell. And it is a New Caledonian group of pro-independence members who want to see the French territory in the Pacific become a state that's independent from France. Now, it was launched in the end of 2023 as a means to regroup a number of independence groups. They frequently hold pro-independence rallies, and they organized the protests on Monday that ballooned into this bout of violence. For France's Interior Minister, it is, and this is a direct quote, it is the CCAT that is the problem. He explained his stance on French television this morning, adding that this is not the work of the alliance of the pro-independence political parties or the FLNKS.
I've assigned a house arrest order to 10 of the leaders. They're not pro-independence politicians. Those under house arrest are mafia leaders. This is different from the FLNKS political party. The CCAT is a small group that calls themselves pro-independence, but they're actually looters and apparently commit murder. They should not be confused with other political activists.
So this stance raises the question of how much violence is the CCAT responsible for? Have they really stoked the flames of the long simmering tensions in New Caledonia? Or is it being positioned as a scapegoat of sorts by the government, which passed the suffrage law that the Kanak people find unfair? Now, according to a number of members of the CCAT group who spoke to the investigative site Mediapart, they say they're being unjustly blamed. They've repeatedly called for calm on social media and for an end to the violence. The group says this. Instead, they say that instead what's creating this violence is not them, but a sense of inequality and poverty among young people who have this feeling that they have been left behind compared to people in mainland France. And this is actually a sentiment that other territories and other overseas departments like Guadeloupe, for example, also have. And then number two, there's deep-rooted colonial anger by the Kanak population, which makes up about 40% of those that live in New Caledonia. Many fear that they will lose any say over what happens in their homeland if there are these changes to the voting rules.
Right, Solange. And there is one really interesting, I think, unexpected angle to this story you're going to tell us about now. And that's the Interior Minister also has said there's been interference in New Caledonia by Azerbaijan. That's a country that is, of course, tens of thousands of kilometers away. So how does Azerbaijan fit into this story?
Well, this is where the France problem that touches on its colonial past and on societal injustices overseas and the territories in general, this suddenly expands to also involve the current geopolitical landscape with powers like Russia and its allies looking for sympathetic ears. Concretely, the French Interior Minister has accused Azerbaijan of, quote-unquote, interference in the unrest in New Caledonia. Baku has said in turn to this that these are baseless accusations. But separatists were invited to Baku last year, and Baku has resented previous support by France of its rival Armenia. Now, this geopolitical knot aside, the issue in New Caledonia remains a difficult one to sort out. Not only is there the challenge of quelling the violence, at times with force, which can also lead to further resentment, but there's also this suffrage question. How do you ensure that the Kanak population feels that they are justly represented by their votes, but also allow those that have arrived in the past decades to be able to vote as well? And on top of that, there's the government's ultimatum of sorts of, okay, we'll revoke this law if you find another deal. And to make it even more of a headache, there's this growing debate of who should be the ones to negotiate such a deal, be it the Interior Minister, the Prime Minister, now the President, and then with whom will they be meeting, the political parties, MPs, or groups like the CCAT.
All right, such an interesting aspect of that story. Thank you very much indeed, Solange Mougin, for coming in to shed a little light on it for us.